Page 24, after the article. Afterward, there would be all kinds of rumors and speculations as the newspapers filled with so-called revelations about the Borden case. Everyone in Fall River, everyone in the nation, would soon have an opinion about what kind of person Lizzie Borden was. Here, however, is a scant handful of undisputed facts, bland though they may be. Although police and newspaper reporters often referred to her as a girl, Lizzie Andrew Borden was in fact a grown woman in August of 1892. She had been born 32 years earlier on July 19, 1860, to Andrew Jackson Borden and Sarah Morse Borden, and Christian Lizzie, not Elizabeth, when she was not quite 3. Her mother died of uterine congestion, 4 months, possibly a miscarriage, coupled with disease of spine. Unlike her sister Emma, who was almost 10 years older, Lizzie grew up without the slightest memory of Sarah Borden. The only mother Lizzie knew was a 37-year-old spinster her father took for his second wife in 1865, Abby Free Gray. The relationship between the new Miss Borden and Lizzie, however, was not especially maternal. Even when Lizzie was small, as Lizzie herself explained, I had never been to her as a mother in many things. When she wanted mothering, Lizzie said she always went first to her sister instead. It was not simply a matter of habit. As her mother lay dying, Emma Borden had solemnly promised to watch over baby Lizzie. The 12-year-old could scarcely have imagined the implications of this pledge, but by all accounts it was a duty Emma never shirked. Baby Lizzie grew up to become a cultured, reasonably well-educated woman, active in her church and community's charitable works. She had a weakness for orange sherbet, a noticeable fondness for pansies, and a fine hand at needlework. In 1890, she spent 19 weeks touring Europe with 5 other young ladies. She taught at Sunday school for Chinese immigrants and served as secretary of the local Fruit and Flower Mission and treasurer of the local Young Women's Christian Temperance Union. If not considered beautiful, she was certainly not repulsive, with glossy nut brown hair and eyes that were described as ice blue, light brown, or gray, depending on the source. Whatever color they were, Lizzie's gaze was undeniably striking, almost unnerving, even in black and white photos. But what about Lizzie's personality? Never mind her favorite hussy or how she spent her Sunday mornings. What was she really like? Those who ought to have known her best life left few clues. Mr. and Miss Borden had rarely spoken of family matters, and Emma Borden was so intensely private that she granted only one interview, more than 20 years after the crime. So here is where things become slippery, where solid facts give way to the observations and impressions of those outside the Borden household, the friends, acquaintances, shopkeepers, and dressmakers who spoke out only after Lizzie Borden stood accused of committing a double-axe murder in broad daylight. Imagine for a moment how that glaring circumstance might influence the details they chose to share. Even keeping that in mind, 2 contradictory traits stand out: Lizzie's reserve and her temper. Both of these aspects of Lizzie's personality pop up in multiple newspaper interviews and statements to police investigators. Like her father, who simply shut his teeth and walked away when his opinions were challenged, Lizzie Borden tended from childhood to be aloof, particularly with new acquaintances. Neither was she one to make a spectacle of herself. A great deal is said about her coolness now, a friend told the Boston Globe. That's exactly like her. Why, at the church sociable last winter, when the waiter that had been spoken about fell on her wrist, it was a heavy, dumb waiter full of dishes, so heavy that it took a strong man to lift it off her arms where it had fallen and pin them under it. Instead of screaming or fainting or doing anything that any other woman but Lizzie Borden would have, she merely said in a low voice, "Will someone come here?" Behind that cool exterior lurked a volatile temper. Lizzie's grammar school principal said it most gently, remembering her as subject to varying moods. A former city marshal of Fall River, on the other hand, confided to a state police detective, "This girl Lizzie Borden is known by a number of people here to be a woman of bad disposition if they tell what they know." Another Fall River citizen remarked to the same detective, "Lizzie is known to be ugly, particularly odd." These words crop up again and again in the state's detective's notes on the Bordens. Lizzie's uncle, Hiram, told police she is very strong-willed and will fight for what she considers her rights. In another interview, he went even further, remarking on his niece's repellent disposition. More than one informant suggested that Lizzie came by her foretell temperament naturally. Miss Morse, the mother of Lizzie Borden, was a very peculiar woman, went one report. She She had a very bad temper. She was very strong in her likes and dislikes. Lizzie's friends, however, viewed the same traits in a different light. As they saw it, Lizzie's distinctive combination of frankness and fearless honesty created what one supporter called a monument of straightforwardness. I never shall believe, even were she convicted of the deed, that she committed it, her friend continued, unless she were to confess herself, and then the marvel would be greater to me that she had concealed her act than that she did it. That is her character. If she had a reason sufficient for herself for murdering those people, it would be like her to say she did and give her reason. And what about Mr. and Miss Borden? What might make anyone, much less their own daughter, want them dead? You would not know it to look at them, but at the time of his death, Lizzie's father, Andrew Jackson Borden, was worth close to $500,000, a fortune that today would equate to nearly $10 million. The medical examiner found $81.65 on his body, a respectable amount of pocket change even now, but equivalent to $2,000 in 1892. The son of a fish peddler, he was a classic self-made man, rising from cabinet-making and undertaking to become president of the Union Savings Bank and director of the BMC DeFree Safe Deposit and Trust Company. He also served on the board of directors of two prominent local mills. Over the course of his nearly 70 years, Mr. Borden had accumulated 2 farms near Swansea, an entire corner of Main Street, and various other rental properties scattered throughout the area. And yet he was not the richest man in town, not by a long shot. His house was not on the fashionable hill at the north end of Fall River, nor did it have running water upstairs like most others of his day. He saw no need for gas lighting where kerosene lamps were cheaper and safer. The Borden home did, however, boast the luxury of central heating, as well as a flush toilet in the cellar. Through his presence never completely broke Mr. Borden of the habit of emptying his morning slop pail into the yard. It was just that kind of thrift and indifference to convenience that helped earn him a reputation as hard and tight-fisted old fellow. Slop pails and chamber pots. Don't think for a moment that Andrew Borden was flinging some raw sewage into the lawn. Slop pails, unlike chamber pots, did not contain nightly deposits of urine or worse. Because the Borden house had no running water upstairs, each bedroom was equipped with a pitcher of clean water, a basin, and a slop pail. After washing and brushing their teeth in the basin, the Bordens would empty their soapy water into the slop pail and carrying it down to the water closet, or in Mr. Borden's case, the yard, where he dumped it on the grass each morning was no dirtier than bath water. There's no denying that he counted every cent. But there was more to Andrew Borden than penny pinching. He was also every inch a gentleman, an old-fashioned Yankee to the core, temperament, industrious, courteous, thin-lipped, with pale blonde whiskers. His manner was such that even his shocking bad hats and threadbare ties could not interfere with his dignity. Above all, he was unfailing, fair and upright in his business dealings, and expected no less the same rigid honesty from others. Then comes Miss Borden. Not a soul in Fall River had an unkind word to say about her. In fact, few had anything at all to say about Abby Borden. She was not much to look at, thickest and graying, and so thoroughly ordinary that her murder was perhaps more disturbing than her husband's. She had no personal property of any particular value. Abby Borden, to put it crudely, was not worth killing, yet those who cared for her cared deeply. According to the Fall River Daily Herald, Miss Southern Miller said that she had lost in Miss Borden the best and most intimate neighbor she had ever met. With those she loved, Miss Borden was not stingy with her affection. "Sit right down," she had said to John Morse when he came unannounced to their door not long after the dinner hour Wednesday afternoon. "We are just through, and everything is hot on the stove. It won't cost us a mite of trouble." More than anyone in the world, more perhaps than her own husband and his children, she loved her half-sister Sarah Bertha Whitehead. Bertie, as she was called in the family, was easily young enough to be Miss Borden's daughter, 36 years younger, in fact, and Miss Borden doted on her, walking the 5 blocks to the Whitehead house almost daily, sometimes with gifts of mince pies sprinkled with rose water, or cast-off clothing from Lizzie and Emma's closet for Bertie's struggling family. Bertie had even named her own little girl Abby in Miss Borden's honor. Like anyone else, the Bordens had their faults, but nothing that could begin to make such an act of butchery comprehensible.